When it comes to voting, you may think it's pretty simple. You fill out an absentee ballot and send it in or drop it off, or you head to the polls on Election Day. But the process of making your voice heard isn't an easy one for everyone. Getting around for 34-year-old Patrick Parks looks different than many people.
I was born with cerebral palsy, and I'm a wheelchair user.
And when it comes to voting, he says people like him with disabilities have extra concerns when they go to the polls.
So are the polling stations even accessible to be able to access those stations, to be able to fill out your ballot, right? Are there curb cuts? Are there ramps? Are there accessible polling stations for folks who need to use the electronic entry points to be able to fill out their ballot?
He says electronic voting systems have been helpful in making sure his voice is heard, but there's always room for improvement.
So are the poll workers aware of, how to treat someone with a disability equitably and how to help them as they need to be assisted throughout, their experience in the polling place?
This way, I think. We're going to pretend like I know where I'm going. I am totally blind. I've been blind since birth.
Kristen Kelling was diagnosed with optic nerve hypoplasia. When it comes to voting, she says, although there is an accessible absentee ballot that is electronic for the blind, she doesn't like that it's printer dependent.
We cannot do an electronic return, which in turn means I have to have somebody help me get the ballot into the envelope, and then I have to have somebody help me get it to where it needs to go.
Help that requires a lot of trust for something as important as this. There are also challenges for her at the polls.
They do have an accessible voting machine called the Dominion. Challenge with that is, number one, it's not always easily understood in terms of the speech. Number two, it isn't something that it doesn't seem that poll workers, at least at the polling place that I go to, seem to know a lot about.
She would like to see Michigan allow for an electronic return of ballots. That way she doesn't have to rely on a printer or other people.
Big issue that you run into is I don't know if they're snooping at and looking at my ballot and trying to actually tamper with it. And that would really make my life easier, and the hundreds and thousands and millions of other blind people out there.
The Hispanic and Latino community also faces challenges when it comes to making their voices heard.
Before, we did not have any, and we still actually don't have any of the ballots translated in Spanish. A lot of people don't know that they can come into the polling place with their own interpreter, whether it be a family member or a friend or a professional interpreter.
Holly Rhea Clarkson says language services and language accessibility are huge concerns, adding we have yet to reach 30% of the population in each county in West Michigan that requires clerks to translate all of the materials into another language.
We are at 11% right now, approaching 12%. And so even though that is a large portion of the population, the clerks aren't legally required to offer that service. We've seen really great collaboration and emphasis on language accessibility with the City of Grand Rapids clerk. And so we have been working very closely with him to contract and recruit and contract bilingual poll workers and make sure they go through our interpreter training.
As you just heard, there are concerns when it comes to voter accessibility. So we took those questions to the Grand Rapids City Clerk.
Grand Rapids doesn't have the population enough to have ballots printed in different languages. However, we're working with the state to get some of the ballots in precincts that have high Spanish-speaking voters translated.
Grand Rapids City Clerk Joel Hondorp says they've been working to make sure translation services are available, and there are posters of each proposal printed in Spanish. However, when it comes to Kristen's concerns of submitting absentee ballots electronically, he says that's up to the legislator.
We don't even have it for military and overseas to return their ballots yet by electronics. So we haven't seen a move to that yet.
As for the Dominion voting machine, he admits it's not 100% perfect, but election workers are trained on how to use it.
This voter assist terminal is much better than what it was. I don't know if there's a perfect marking system, but it does give voters an ability to mark their ballots.
One thing that stood out, nearly everyone that we spoke to about voting challenges in Grand Rapids said the county has been receptive of their needs, working with them to address the issues that they're seeing at the polls. And remember, if you have any questions about your polling place ahead of November 8th, you can contact your local clerk. Reporting in studio, Jamie Sherrod, Fox 17 News.